Hello, welcome everybody back to the Political Owl page. We've got another interview, an interview that we tried to get last year, but we just couldn't sync up our timetables. One of the first people to say, yes, I'll do an interview with you, and somebody I've known for the past 5 years is Councillor Tim Thomas of Ynysawdre and Chair of Ynysawdre Community Council now. Welcome, Tim.
Oh, thanks for the very warm welcome. Apologies it's taken so long to tie me down, but I think you appreciate these things. Very busy at the moment. Just got to warn all the listeners and yourself. I got very young children, and my daughters have got some little friends round this evening. So if there's a few bangs and crashes, that's what's happening.
No, it's fine. My son occasionally comes in and out. He's here with me at the moment because it's the holidays and that. So Tim, I know you, and a lot of people do know because you're very visible on social media. You're one of the busiest councillors we see. I see you doing lots of little picking and that, but not everybody will know your background. So can you give us a bit of your background?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, I was elected in 2017. I was originally Plaid Cymru, actually, and I stood for them in a number of elections. I've stood in parliamentary and Senedd elections as well. But yeah, I was elected in 2017 in Ynysawdre. Ynysawdre is a great community. It's somewhere I got lots of friends and family. So it was just a bit of a no-brainer to stand there. Obviously, before that, I was on Pencoed Town Council as well. So I've been around a little bit, but found a more permanent home in Ynysawdre where, I'm very well known, very visible, as you've said as well. And it's been a tremendously busy 5 years. Looking forward to the challenge of the elections coming up in May. Certainly been getting myself known in the area. I think it's second most referrals. The referrals are running into the thousands. And, Ynysawdre is just a great community. But there are pockets that are quite deprived. That they rank quite heavily on the what is called the Welsh Index of Multiple Deprivation, and then there's other parts that are quite affluent. So it's a real mix. And in my casework, I get, I've done thousands of referrals, but the mix of referrals is quite unique. I mean, I've done some really in-depth casework, things like homelessness, overcrowding, all sorts of casework you can't imagine, and working with the police. And then there's your bread and butter stuff, your potholes and your things like that. So you get a massive mix. It's a real microcosm in Ynysawdre. As you know, you're a former resident. But yeah, I'd say my background has assisted me in that. I've been a campaigns and policy officer in the housing sector. I've worked with Communities First, one of the Welsh Government's anti-poverty flagship programs. I've worked in local authorities, I've worked in private industry, charities. I've been around a bit, and I think all this experience has certainly helped equip me to take on the challenges of Ynysawdre.
I always ask, why did the kind of person stand all that? Is this something you've always wanted to do, or was this something that you decided, I can make a difference here, I'm going to do it, see what I can do?
Yeah. I mean, I'm from a bit of a, I gave a little bit of a background then to my work history. And I've been around a little bit. I've worked in a number of local governments. I've worked in Neath Talbot, Caerphilly, and a couple of local authorities in England. And I did work in scrutiny. So I have had experience of working with local members. And, I've worked with a mixed bag. I've seen some brilliant councillors, and I've seen what they can do in terms of improving their communities. And I just thought it was really exciting. I think I'm very much a hands-on councillor. You've seen me litter picking and what else I've been doing. Very much involved with the helping out with the asset transfer. Obviously, Tondy Rugby Club are the main drivers of that, but I'm supportive of it. I've been supporting all our sports club. Signed up for Tondy Robins Football Club, but they've never seen me play football. They might they saw me play and they probably reject me. Tondy United as well, great community club for kids as well. I've been very much involved with them as well. School governor in Bryn Menyn. Might come on to that later, I guess. And Colic Medal of Erwin. So really, it's about, I don't know, I'm losing the emphasis on politics. I think it's more about being a community champion, and just getting stuck in there in your community and doing what's best for your community.
Yeah. When we were going to speak last year, I had this button because you at that time you had a lot of hats to wear, and I was going to introduce you as county councillor for Ynysawdre, community councillor for Ynysawdre, community councillor for St Bride's, because you took that on last year as well.
Yeah.
And at the time, you were the national chairman for Propel. But
yes.
Since then, to my shock, you actually became an independent.
Yeah.
Was there a reasoning behind becoming an independent, or was it just?
Well, yeah, I mean, well spotted. I mean, yeah, I've been involved in a couple of small parties, and really, what I'd argue is that I was pretty much an independent anyway. I mean, I was stuck on a limb on my own with both Plaid and Propel, so I may as well have been an independent anyway. But and again, I think we'll probably come on to this really. The farcical budget council meeting that we had only last night, I think that was a disgraceful example of politics. And I am increasingly becoming of the opinion that our communities will progress, especially at the local level, if we kick party politics to the side, to the curb, and just get independence in really, and community champions really, and those that act in the best interest of the community rather than towing a party line. And you've just got to look at some of the brilliant independents that we got at the moment, haven't you? Really, we're really making a massive difference to the communities they've served. People like Amanda Williams, done brilliantly. Not quite as many referrals as me, but not that far behind.
No,
but brilliant interventions in the chamber yesterday, and I think independents are really advancing because they've got a free rein to speak their minds rather than being whipped. We don't have a party whip or anything like that. We just speak our minds. And I think if you look at the current crop of independents, we all come from really diverse and interesting backgrounds. I'm a campaigns officer for one of the leading housing organisations. The Ynysawdre independents. We've got Mark, who's health and safety manager. Leanne, who's Mark John, Leanne, who spoke in your show, if you like, on Sunday, conveyancing manager. When we all come together and with these unique skills and the ability to speak in a free and open way, I think it's really going to progress our communities, really.
Yeah. Can I just ask, have you got me on speaker there? Because I keep hearing myself and I don't like myself.
I don't know. I'm on a laptop.
It's just every so often it seems I can hear myself. It just suddenly bang like that loud, but it's not all the time.
Oh, I hate that.
I can't hear it. I can't hear it now, but then sometimes when you're speaking, I say yes or not along, I can hear myself come back. But we'll see how it goes.
What have I? Oh, okay, there we
go. We're okay. I wasn't sure whether I was going to talk about it, but you've mentioned it. What happened in the chamber yesterday, and I must commend Alex Williams, Amanda Williams, Matthew Voicey as well, and yourself, even though now you seem to be the bad boy Bridge End politics after your admonishment from the mayor yesterday, which I found quite surprising that he admonished you, he admonished Matthew and Alex, but when his fellow Labour councillor Charles Smith said something, he didn't want to know and dismissed Alex's point of order on that.
Yeah.
If you want to explain a little bit about what happened yesterday, because I thought it was terrible. It was very undemocratic in what they were doing. And I don't think the officers, although they were explaining the processes and things like that, I think they went a bit beyond and was forcing people's hands quite generally in the way they were going to vote.
Yeah, I'm just trying to collect my thoughts because where do I begin? It was a farcical meeting. It was a nasty meeting. It was a bad-tempered meeting. I'm used to a little bit of abuse. I got to be honest. I don't know how regularly you listen to full council meetings, but I'm at the receiving end of it for quite a bit. I'm quite thick-skinned. I couldn't care less, to be honest. I'll carry on. I'll still ask the questions. I'll just roll with the punches and carry on. But at the end of the day, we're trying to diversify our councillors, aren't we? We want more female councillors. We want more disabled. We want BAME councillors. We want LGBT councillors. We want a more diverse selection of councillors to reflect the communities we serve. And I think anyone watching that meeting last night would be utterly disgusted. And no wonder voting figures are going down, and no wonder we're struggling to get people to volunteer for community councils, because we got vacancies in Ynysawdre, to be honest. But where do we go with that? So you've asked me to address some of the points. I got to start by taking my hat off to Alex Williams, another independent councillor in Penprisk. I thought his intervention was brilliant. So he actually, if memory serves, he was talking about actually a council tax cut. Didn't actually go into a figure, but I think that was a really interesting intervention, because people are really struggling at the moment now. The cost of food is sky high. I mean, 100 quid doesn't get you very far for a weekly shop, even. It seems like petrol, what's it now, nearly 150. It's just absolutely shocking. Fuel bills, I could just go on and on and on. And the Labour budget proposed a 0%, keeping it flatlined, freeze, if you like. If you read the small print, they're actually the officers are recommending a freeze and then a 4.5 increase thereon after. So I think Alex, in recognising the difficulties that people are experiencing in the cost of living, he actually proposed a decrease. And we are mindful of the challenging times for local government, even though the budget settlement from the Welsh government was significantly better than expected. That's not to say that there are subsequent other challenges such as Brexit and COVID. There's going to be some challenging financial years ahead. So recognising a council tax decrease, but having a rolling cycle of efficiency savings throughout that process. And that was, officers said that basically that wasn't a very good idea. There were a number of other good interventions. One thing I was pretty disgusted by was my questions couldn't be heard.
No.
I don't know if you could hear what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
You could hear what I was trying to say. Okay. Well, I just shout a little bit, so I managed to get my questions out. Excuse me. So one question I wanted to ask a couple of questions on more the capital budget. So there's, of course, I'm sure your previous speakers must have talked about Arbed. No doubt.
I did on Sunday.
Oh, yeah, I did mention that. I do remember that, yeah. So I won't go into the specifics again and dig up old stuff again. But basically, as part of the capital budget programme, they're proposing 3.5 million to support the works in Cllr for the Arbed programme. And I wanted to ask a couple of questions, really, whether 3.5 million was sufficient. Could this spiral out of control? We all know that building materials are increasing exponentially, cost of labour is going up as well. So I wanted to know, when was this figure formulated, and is it a reasonable figure? I also wanted to ask, really, I couldn't get this bit in, unfortunately, was could this take in, I mean, what was that 3.5 million? Was that just to get the works just back to the 0 point, to get the houses back to how they were originally? Because that doesn't really take into consideration any legal disputes any residents have, or the mental health impact that residents might have as well. So I'm wondering if that 3.5 million is sufficient. We'll never know now. Well, we will know further down the line, but we won't know for a little bit, thanks to the mayor's intervention. I also wanted to challenge a couple of questions on the heat source networks as well, how they're performing. Didn't get that in as well. Did get one question in, and it was relating to council tax. Obviously, the Labour BCBC administration are proposing a 0% council tax increase, or council tax freeze for this year. Oddly enough, those with long enough memories they remember that they did exactly the same thing in 2017 and the 5 years before that as well. Now, what happened on those years? Oh yes, it was election year, and they must think that people are born yesterday, because the small print, as I already alluded to earlier, the small print in the cabinet report recommends that council tax goes up by 4.5% in subsequent years as well. So I put it to the deputy leader. We have a medium-term financial strategy, and that basically plans out how we're going to spend money and our challenges, our key challenges over a medium term. So if we can have that sort of medium-term financial plan, can we have a similar medium-term view to the amount of council tax that we'll be expecting? So then people can at least have some idea how much they'll be charged, and they can plan and prepare in the future. He gave a load of waffle, and he didn't commit to any numerical figures, but we all know what's ahead. We all know that quite eye-watering levels of council tax are ahead. I mean, Bridgend Council is already higher than Knightsbridge, I think, in London. So, you know, well, we'll see what happens.
We've got Bridgend are in the top 10 highest council tax in Britain, and that I find quite disturbing for an area that the Welsh government classes as a deprived area, and it's not nonsensical. And I don't remember a name. Is it Keris or something? The lady who's
Lord. Yeah.
When it was asked about lowering it, and I think it was Matthew Voicey said even if it was 1%, and he said something about 500,000. She came back and said it's 875,000, so that will make the 500,000 that they've got in reserve or for emergency funding. I think it was Matthew or Alex who said that. But earlier they said this 9% increase from Welsh Assembly government equates to 19.2 million, which is nearly 10 times more than what it went up on the increase last year. It's about 7 or 8 times more than what the increase was last year. So they're essentially got, I'd say, at least 10 million more than they were ever expecting. So why wasn't that 10 million either used for a council tax reduction, because they could have not just reduced it by 1 or 2%, they going up to 3%, that 870,000 times 3 is what, 3.1 million, and there's still an extra 7 million there.
Absolutely, yeah.
It just doesn't make sense sometimes that they've already planned to use the money extra they've got that they didn't know they were going to get, and they're only freezing council tax, which would have been brought in a lot less than what the increase was.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if you want me to go on a little bit. I mean,
yeah, carry on.
So then we had a vote, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we have a roll call. And I guess if your name is Anne or Andrew, you're at the disadvantage, aren't you? Because you have to go first. Which I did point out, Alex or Amanda. So I did point that out, that it's rather unfair. And I was pleased to hear that the monitoring officer does agree with that, and that she is looking at some sort of voting buttons for when we do go back to the hybrid system. So some members can still log in and be online, and some could go in the chamber. I'll probably go for the chamber option, actually. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. So yeah, then we had all the members doing their voting. Some members did vote against, just in the interest of fairness and clarity. I did abstain for that vote, and the reason why I abstained was simply because my questions couldn't be heard. I could not make an informed decision without having my questions being answered. So I just didn't feel that I could go either way. was inclined to probably vote against, but I need the evidence, and that wasn't given to me, unfortunately. So I did abstain. But one thing that really I thought was quite disgraceful, actually, was that the monitoring officer said that, I think I'm on pretty safe ground saying this, because it's factual. I'm saying what happened. I'm trying to choose my words carefully, of course, because we do have a code of conduct. The monitoring officer, and I'm pretty much quoting, said that if we voted against, we would be disagreeing with council officers' recommendations, and that could be considered bringing the council in disrepute. So therefore, anyone who decided to vote against would have to write to the monitoring officer and inform her why they have done so. Now, I voted against the budget in 2021. I think I abstained to the previous one, 2020. A couple of members voted against the 2020 budget. I voted against in 2021. We never, ever had to write these letters explaining why we voted against. I mean, it's utterly absurd, isn't it? I mean, can you imagine it happening in Parliament? You vote for or against. It's absurd. And the purpose of the opposition is to provide opposition. It's as simple as that, not to be some sort of PR mouthpiece for the council. It's absolutely ridiculous. Having a little look over Twitter, and I noticed that Jeff Jones is equally puzzled by the monitoring officer's intervention. Again, this is factual, so I think I'm on fairly safe ground.
Is this Jeff Jones?
And he's a man,
leader
former leader for 9 years, former member of the council for 25 years, now a local government consultant, and he has got it on firm advice from a legal specialist that I won't quote what he said, but that it was a load of nonsense, basically. I think members should actually get a second opinion on that, really, because as I said, the purpose of opposition is to provide opposition. Simple as that, really. But that's where we're at with that one.
There was something that Alex Williams brought up during the meeting, because the financial officer and I believe the deputy leader were saying, well, if you had an alternative budget, bring it up. But Alex came forward and said, we don't get everything that everybody else sees. And even in scrutiny committees, you wouldn't see every bit of working out. You get, this is what we want to do, and what do you think of that? And then you scrutinise that. You don't scrutinise every line item of, you don't get every line item of what council spends, what the money is, and things like that. Do you think that is a problem, and all members should be provided, if they so wish, every financial detail so that they can do a proper alternative budget?
I think the main dichotomy here, there's twofold, really, isn't it? There's two problems here, isn't there? Firstly is the timing. So the budget is issued, and you get a certain amount of time to table agenda a alternative budget, and I think we worked it out. We'd have to have got in the alternative in about 23 hours. So the timing is difficult. I mean, crikey, I've done about 20 referrals today alone. I can't do a budget alternative in 23 hours. There's no chance. No. And I don't think any of my colleagues could do that. So to say that time period is adequate is just nonsense, quite frankly. Secondly, there's the access to officers, and I got a lot of respect for officers, but it just goes without saying that if you are the part of the administration, you're going to get slightly better access to officers. The Section 106 officer, and 104. Oh, I forget the name of the chief. 105. That's it. The chief officer, the finance officer. Yeah, thank you.
Who's the one you're going to get? Me or you?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, 106 is, of course, it is a thing. It's
planning.
Planning. Yeah. Thank you. You get more access to these officers, really, on a day-to-day basis. They are accommodating. I'm not being negative in that way, but it's just a timings issue, really. And I think we had the pantomime scenario again in cabinet where the leader said, "Oh, correct me if I'm wrong. Was there no alternative budget?" And we have to go through that palaver every year. And there we are. It's all pantomime.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say is when the cabinet do the budget, because it is a budget that's done through the cabinet, correct?
Yes.
They have the officers doing all that work for them, isn't
Yes.
it? Yes. If you're going to do an alternative budget as an opposition, or even just the Plaid Cymru members, which are only a couple of members, you don't have those officers doing all that work for you, do you? Would you?
No, and again, this is down to timings because what it is. The UK government have a massive cake, and then they give a slice of that to the Welsh government. The Welsh government have got loads of commitments, haven't they? The NHS and whatever. They give that slice to local government, and by the time the cake's been sliced so many times, the General Council gets their slice, and we don't have time to scrutinise it as an alternative budget. I mean, we didn't know it was going to be a better than expected settlement until, it was presented to us. Yeah, exactly.
So it's all about timing, and it does create an argument for doing rolling budgets, like Alex suggested, and
yes.
rolling handouts from. I don't want to say handouts, but I can't think of the word, from Welsh government, where they say you'll get this year, this next year, unless something really drastic happens, like another pandemic shutdown sort of thing. So councils can then plan their budget on a better footing and balance budgets on a further scale, rather than, well, what will we get by the 31st? What will they say we're having on 31st December? A 5% increase or a 5% decrease in what we're going to get?
Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't just cause problems for councillors. It must put so much pressure on those officers who are trying to work on a budget. They've got no clue that could be 19 million better than they thought, or 1 or 2 million less than what they thought they'd probably get.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, I'm using the mute like a cough button.
Yeah, it's okay.
A bit of a legacy of COVID, I'm afraid. But yeah, I completely. I didn't December. I completely agree. It's really difficult. Of course, we did have the added challenge. Mr. Michael has increased his precept for the police.
Yeah.
If you live in Ynysawdre, you've got one lucky thing, I suppose. We kept our budget frozen. You'll remember the good old years when you were on the council. We don't charge a penny more than those years. We've kept it, at the same level. I think we're 5th or 6th cheapest, and I think that's not bad considering some of the challenges we've had at that council. Neighbouring local parish council, community council, St. Bride's, they're pretty low as well. So I think citizens in the Valley's Gateway don't get a bad deal from their community councils, to be fair, and I think that the services are improving as well. Financial scrutiny is improving. Value for money is getting better as well.
You spoke about Ynysawdre there in the community council and the challenges you've had. Personally, I know what they are because at the start I was part of everything, and it's been 5 years now, and I still think it should have been resolved a long time ago and done a long time ago. Can you update us on what's happened, where you're going now with what did happen?
Oh, nice controversial one, is it? That's nice. Okay. No, so obviously I knew about these allegations quite long ago, and I decided to keep relatively quiet about it. And the reason why was because there was an ongoing criminal investigation, and we'd be in Ynysawdre Community Council meetings, and sometimes some members would start talking about it. I don't know if you remember then. I remember I did a point of order at one point, when one member started saying some stuff, and I said, point of order, we cannot talk about this trial. It's an ongoing criminal investigation. Now I'm a little bit more comfortable saying details. I'm even comfortable naming the person, because there is, of course, an Audit Wales report.
In case you don't want to, I don't mind, because if they sue me, I've got nothing anyway. I'm not going to be a councillor for much longer, so it's not going to affect me in any way. Her name was Natalie Morgan, and she was the clerk of Ynysawdre Council and Llangonoid Middle, or lower.
That's right, yeah. All
well.
named in the. It's all in the public domain. It's all named. She's named in the Audit Wales report. So, excuse me, fairly safe footing naming her as far as I'm concerned. But one thing I want to get really crystal clear is that it's alleged, I should say, that she unlawfully took in the region of £72,000 from Ynysawdre Community Council over the period, and I think this is a really important key point, over the period July 2012 to September 2017. So every single member at that community council now was not in office when this went on. I joined at November 2017, so just after her term of office. It's also worth pointing out that we've had different clerks since, and they are in no way whatsoever culpable in any way. What we did have, we were left with a tremendous hangover, a financial hangover, where, we weren't talking about what events we'll put on. We were talking about whether we pay for the electricity bill or not. You know, it was pretty dire. We didn't have a lot of money to play with. And you'll probably remember some of the events that we put on, and they were good. They were nice for kids, but they were very low budget, weren't they? So it was things like a little Halloween party.
Easter egg hunt as well.
Easter egg hunt, low expenditure. But, you know, we didn't have any money. But, you know, I'm quite proud of what we achieved in that community council, because I think since the first time in the 1970s, we've had Christmas lights. Not everyone's cup of tea, but some people really appreciate them. We've had hanging baskets as well. Again, people quite like them as well. But we're going off topic a little bit. We wanted to talk about the fraud case, really. So, yeah, and I will name it, Natalie Morgan. It's alleged that she has unlawfully taken in the region of £72,000. There's a further, I think it's in the region of £6,000 that she basically awarded, if you like, unlawfully to Llangonoid Middle. Back in those days, I think both councils, Ynysawdre and Llangonoid, I think they were both using online banking. Yeah. And I think what she was doing is, oh crikey, I've pinched a bit too much off Ynysawdre or Llangonoid, I better put a bit back in. And she was putting, well, it's alleged, I should say, she was putting money to and from each of the councils. So eventually, the police were made aware of this. My understanding is that the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, have decided not to prosecute. Now, the reason why they're not prosecuting is because following the criminal procedure, the interviewing process, the investigative procedure, to say, they came to the conclusion that Natalie Morgan wasn't adequately trained, and that she didn't have a contract, and that she wasn't given suitable support. And there were a couple of other mitigating factors as well. However, Audit Wales have come in now, and they've done this report. It's in the public domain. I would invite anyone to have a look at it. If you just Google Ynysawdre Community Council and
if you send me the link, I'll put it up on the page.
Oh, cool! Yeah, I think it's uncomfortable reading, but I think it spells out exactly what she did. And it's my understanding now that the police are interested in re-investigating the incident. We did, as a community council, we did put in a victim's right to appeal. So a victim's right to appeal the CPS decision. And that is what's prompted the ongoing investigation. and we've now hoping that she gets, prosecuted, but that's where we're at. But to go forward, we've got to improve our systems as a community council. And as I said before, none of the councillors or the clerk was in any way culpable. But we've got to, it is incumbent on us to make sure that this horrific incident doesn't ever happen again. And from the Audit Wales report, they gave us 8 recommendations. It was incumbent on us. We had to do this. We had to put an advert in a local newspaper. We chose the Glamorgan Gazette. Sounds sensible, really, doesn't it? And we had to put on a public meeting, which was online, and we put the link on publicly. And we discussed the 8 recommendations, and we agreed to all 8 recommendations. And we have now submitted a report to Audit Wales where we've outlined an action plan. And I think we're making really good progress as a community council to make sure this pretty scandalous fraud doesn't happen again. So they're quite technical recommendations. So I won't bore you with technical things. But one thing we've introduced is a new accountancy system called Scribe. And this basically automates all our transaction payments. And it makes it all the more difficult for falsifying any creative accountancy, shall we say. But I think recommendations 7 and 8 were the most interesting to the public. Recommendation 7 was that we try and get the £6,000 off Llangonoid Middle, which we are in quite cordial talks with that community council. So hoping that we can get that back. Obviously, they're getting a bit of legal advice. They're not just going to hand over the cash, but we're having very positive talks with them. And of course, to try and get the money back off Natalie Morgan, if she is, but that is going to be obviously tricky. But from my perspective, I'd like to see justice done.
Yeah. When I was there, what always bugged me about it was every year, as we know, community councils have to submit an audit, and it has to be done by an outside auditor who's registered. Now, Natalie Morgan never used a registered auditor.
No.
Why was this never picked up by Audit Wales, who then subsequently have got to sign off on your audit? Do they have some culpability for not? Because she didn't submit an audit every year, and then the person she was using was not a registered auditor. So, does some culpability lie with Audit Wales for not picking this up sooner?
I'd like to decline to comment on that, I think, if I may.
That's no problem.
But I think it's a massive challenge to Audit Wales, to be fair.
Yeah.
There are a lot of community councils in Wales. They differ in size. They differ in structure. They differ in officer experience. Some have got a fleet of officers. I mean, Penarth Town Council, they've got a couple of officers who are full-time. And others then are volunteer. Well, we're all volunteers on community councils, but then then there's some with clerks who only do a couple of hours a week and things like that. So I think they're fairly unregulated. And all in all, I am a bit of a fan of community councils.
I am.
But they have got to get their act together. And Ynysawdre back in the day, it wasn't the only one. We've had some ongoing, I won't get a name it, my stag. And I don't think Bridgend is a stranger, the only one impact as well. There must be loads of community councils across Wales, and indeed England, to be fair, where these little irregularities, should we say, are occurring.
Yeah, well, one was made famous online, wasn't it? Jackie Wee.
Oh, yeah. What was that called again? Crumbs.
Began with H, I think. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But that brought community councils to the public eye, but in the wrong way, which is because I think community councils and town councils do so much work that goes unnoticed on the larger scale. But when something goes wrong, it's very public and people get bad views. Because understandably, before 2017 election, it was the residents of Ynysawdre, certain groups and certain residents, a couple of them ended up on the council after the elections, that was bringing this to attention. Where's our money going? What's happened to the money? And it was before that election that Natalie Morgan and the other councillors on the council at the time called the police to a public meeting to have those residents removed. And I think the residents group, I know at some point they were the biggest fan of yours. I hope that's changed since. The certain residents group, you know what I'm on about, because they were calling for the dissolving of the actual council and trying to do that. Are they still pushing that way?
I think they are, yes, and I think that's grossly unfair to tar the current councillors and the current clerk with historic failings of others, really. As you've said, when town and community councils work well, they work really well, don't they? And I think they're an important feature for community development, and they can shield communities from austerity as more and more services are taken away from the borough council. Excuse me.
No problem.
So there's something going off. That as more and more services are taken away through austerity for the borough council, the community councils can have an opportunity to step in. And I think there's a classic example here that the community asset transfers. Now in Ynysawdre, in our area, we do share a border with St Bride's and Newcastle Higher with this, but Pandy Park, of course, the leaders in this will be Tondy Rugby Club, who will propose to take on the asset transfer of Pandy Park, but we can certainly be there as a supportive partner, and we could access funding through the town and community council grant and support them in ways that they probably couldn't afford, really. So there's definitely a future for town and community councils, definitely.
That's good. And I'm very, as you know, I'm a big fan of town and community councils. But I see the council doing what they call the community asset transfer or capital asset transfer. But even One Voice Wales has called it, it's not a capital asset transfer, it's a liability transfer. All they're doing is transferring liability for so long. And then
long leases,
So it's not transferring the actual asset, it's just transferring the liability, the insurance and maintenance.
What my views on CATs, if you like, community asset transfers, let's use the whole thing. I'm very much in favour of them. I like the idea of assets being devolved to citizens and community groups. I really like that idea. But what I don't like is when they're forced on groups, because what it was put to us is if Tondy don't take on Pandy Park, the grass will just be left fallow and it'll just grow and grow and grow. And oh, crikey, not on my watch. I would hang my head in shame if that happened, because that's a much loved facility by many. It's not just people who play sport, people go for walks there, bike rides, so it's an important community asset. Another thing I'm not too pleased about is the lack of flexibility. And I got to take my hat off to Tondy Rugby Club. They've been brilliant on this, and I'll do whatever I can to support them as they try and take on this asset transfer. But it's the lack of flexibility, isn't it, really? I mean, Pandy Park is massive. I can't imagine to appreciate how difficult it is running a rugby club on its own. And they're a good rugby club, aren't they? So, there's a lot to take on there. But to take on what they wanted to do, they wanted to take on the asset, as in just the rugby pitches and possibly the football pitches. But they got to take on the whole park. And that includes all the paths, all the river management, the bridges, all the adjacent fields, or the pavilion. That's an important one. And that is a massive challenge for anyone. I mean, they're run by volunteers as well, like the council are. I don't know how we're going to get round managing the pavilion. That sounds like a full-time job to me, really. But I'm sure we'll think so. Maybe that could be, I don't know, if we can support them in any way. We'll have to look at that. But that's a bit of a problem we haven't quite worked out yet. But I think if they really want to get these assets off their books, and that is, undeniably the reason why, they could have been a little bit more flexible. And I think if they'd done that, we would have got a couple of these community asset transfers over the line by now. Because correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's only Brinceffin Rugby Club, and there's another one as well in there in Blaengarw. Is it one of the
clubs up there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Football team or something.
Yeah. So Carn Rovers or something like that. So anyway, 2 over the line, and Pandy Park's a massive challenge. The only one I think is more challenging is Newbridge Fields. Yeah. That must be a real headache. That's going to be, but there we are. And
Brinceffin, that took years and years and years to get over the line.
Yeah, they were lucky in some respects. They had a really good working group, and some of the parents who were involved in the Brinceffin kids touch rugby were very much involved in that, and I know that because my daughter used to be involved in that, and there were a couple of parents there that had a legal background, and I think they were quite influential in getting that over the line. But of course, that is, I take my hat off to it. That's a brilliant success story, and that asset would be really invaluable for the community. But it was only the pitch and the community centre. It's a little bit more complex, this Pandy Park one, I think. But brilliant work there by the people, by the Brinceffin Rugby Club. That community centre is brilliant. I visited it the other day, actually. I visited Brinceffin Community Pantry. And we managed to get, thanks to Tesco's, we managed to get 1,000 bags to the pantry. They're short on bags. Incidentally, I would recommend visiting the pantry for Thursday, 2 p.m. till 4. For £5, you can get loads of food. I reckon it's well within the region of £15 to £18. Anyone can go. It's not like a food bank. So, obviously, I've heard they do waiver the charge for really vulnerable people, but you or I could go for £5 and, have a loads of coffee in there. Brilliant it is. And they're volunteers. And that's another great example of community spirit, I think, really.
Yeah. Going back to the Brinceffin Rugby Club, I get criticised because I speak to independents all the time. I do the interviews with them, mainly because party members don't want to do it. I will praise when they do well. Cllr Thomas was part of the big reason that eventually got over the line. The Labour councillor in Brinceffin was part of the big reason getting that eventually over the line. It took a long time, but he was always there in support of it, which I'll praise people when they do well and I'll criticise people when they do bad. So praise to Cllr Thomas for doing that back then. He may not have been the councillor because Mark John 5 years ago was just short on the number of votes, as I remember, because I was standing in Brinceffin as well. I think I stole his votes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mark. There was one thing you wanted to talk about.
Well, back in the day, probably a little bit my fault as well. So I got to double apologise to Mark. I put a Plaid candidate there as well, unknowingly.
Yes, Nick.
Anyway, Nick Alderton, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, you wanted to talk about something that's come up recently at Ynysawdre with the men in primary school with the parking situation there. Do you want to explain to us what is going on and
it's on a nice easy one, is it? Again, controversial decisions my way, isn't it? No, well, no, I know, yeah. So what's happened is the drop-off point in Bryn Melyn Primary. It's my understanding that there was a minor accident, and as a result, they closed the parental drop-off, they then ask parents to park their cars excuse me, in CCYD or Cllr Tim Thomas, if you prefer. That put extra pressure on that car park. And obviously the watchful eyes of the health and safety executive were watching. Now it's my further understanding again that the health and safety executive spotted several near misses and instantly closed that car park as well. Now, I'm at pains now to say this because I've got to say how grateful I am and thankful to all staff at Bryn Melyn Primary and to all staff at Cllr Tim Thomas. They have been at the brunt of some unnecessary language, and I really am at pains to say this. It was neither Bryn Melyn Primary or CCYD's decision to close those car park points. It was solely the decision of Bridgend County Borough Council. I'm at real pains at that, say that, because this was discussed at a governor's meeting. So basically, by closing those, are you all right, Luke? I'll carry on. So by closing those school car parks, what they basically did is devolve the problem of parking into the community. And I've got to say, welcome back. I've got to say, I've seen videos from residents of really dangerous parking, and they were fearful of community safety. Basically, I mean, there's nearby Longderry, and a resident there showed me a video of one of their children nearly being run over, and that damage to property, and then they can't park as well. So I was really quite disappointed to learn that the problems have just been devolved, if you like, into the community. So been working quite hard, asking questions of the education director. I'm quite pleased to learn that, well, it's been a long old process, hasn't it? I mean, these closed early December, but as of February the 29th, they will be reopening the parental drop-off points, but you've got to apply to get a permit into there as well. So some people won't get access into these drop-off points. So I've asked the question, what will be the criteria to get a place? How many cars will they allow? What will they do for breakfast clubs? What will they do for after-school activities as well? I hope it works. I welcome the decision to reopen them. It's made a lot of media representation in this. Probably, I don't know if you've seen, Luke, there was a barricade from residents of Longderry.
Sat on the lawn chairs, garden chairs.
Yeah, and I can understand their frustrations, why they did that. Yeah. Was it the right thing to do? I don't know. Probably not. But again, I've seen the footage of people parking down there, and I can sympathise with them, why they did what they did. They were protecting their interests, but I think things got a little bit out of hand, and I'm glad that they're no longer doing that, but I do sympathise. I hope we can go back to normality. I was really saddened to learn that teaching staff were getting some quite abusive language thrown at them. And I hope things can just repair now, really. We need calm on this one, quite frankly, and a bit of stability. And hopefully we can monitor the situation and improve going forward. One of the senior staff at CCYD, I've asked if I could view the drop-off points, and he said, yeah, no problem, so I'll be doing that. Obviously, the school drop-off for me in my life is one of the most stressful things in my life, so I won't be able to do it in the morning, but I'll be able to view the parking arrangements for myself in the afternoons. So I look forward to that, and I'll be able to see for myself exactly what the challenge is. Hopefully it'll be a streamlined process.
Yeah, two things. I just want to apologise. I sneezed and it wasn't pretty slow, so I had to get a tissue. So I thought I'd best go offline to turn my camera off at that point. The other thing, I think 10 meant the 28th of February because it's not 29 days in February this year.
Oh, well done. Yes. Yeah.
That would be fun. People waiting for the 29th of February
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah.
Do you think, because this is going on something that is that I find is a big issue, and something that was a big issue for Ynysawdre a few years ago, is do you think it was a failure in the planning process that has caused this? Because we know it's happened in the past, and tragically, up in Ynysawdre, a young boy lost his life, and such a tragic situation. It's happened again since. Luckily enough, nothing tragic. It's happened at Coity Primary as well. That the planning wasn't done correctly, and the drop off and that was thing. And now it seems like Bryn Melyn Primary School seems to be the same thing. Do you think it's a failure in the planning process?
Could be, couldn't it? I'm not a building surveyor expert. I won't pretend to be. But I am aware of members in other areas of the authority who have highlighted some concerns. Actually, I did raise one or two concerns myself, and I did propose that to reduce the pressure of cars, perhaps we could have things like walking buses. And I proposed that back in 2017. It wouldn't be the answer for everyone. As I alluded to earlier, the school drop-off is one of the most stressful things in many parents' lives. I can sympathize with that. And what a lot of people do, they drop their kids off to school and then they're rushing off to work. So that the walking bus wouldn't be a solution for everyone, but it certainly decrease some of the traffic. But to answer your question is possibly. Now, conversations I've had with the director of education, he said to me that it's not down to design faults. What it's down to is the behaviour of a small minority of parents using vehicles inappropriately. I don't know to the extent of the validity of that statement. It could be accurate, I don't know, but you've got to weigh up the fact that this has taken 3 months to resolve. And I think it'll become clearer as we monitor this situation ongoing. If it is down to the poor driving habits, hopefully these measures will eradicate that. If it is a design fault, it'll continue to be a problem, won't it, really? And it'll all become clear. But it's something I'm going to really carefully monitor. If I'm allowed back in May, it's going to be very high on my list of priorities. But yeah, it does need continued monitoring, doesn't it, really?
Yeah. Going off that now, the controversial subjects, because I think you've had enough now. Let's go on. What has been the best part of the job for the last 5 years for you?
I think, yeah, it's a good question, that, isn't it? Yeah. I think it's the personal interactions I've had with people. I've got an idea in my head, and I don't want to say it because I don't want to identify the person.
It's okay, you can say me.
No, it's not you. But I'm going to try and think my words carefully because I don't want to identify people because they're quite vulnerable. But I've got a huge amount of referrals, right? These referrals, right? They're not your if you like, your dog dirt politics. They're not all of them. Some of them are your potholes and your rubbish and things like that. They're two a penny. Some of my referrals are really in-depth, deep casework. And I did assist an elderly lady who, I won't say her disabilities, but she has quite severe disabilities. I assisted her with a police investigation where she reported a crime, and I'm going to say of a serious nature. I'm not going to say any more than that. And I think because of her lack of communication skills, she was unable to articulate the seriousness of this offence. And I was able to support her. And we managed to get the statement, managed to get her interviewed re-interviewed, and somebody was arrested for this instance as well. So I think that is a specific case.
Yeah.
But collectively, one thing I've really enjoyed is representing people. You get really difficult problems as a counsellor. People come to you often when they've tried themselves and failed. Now, unfortunately, as a counsellor, there's no magic wand. We can get the facts and we can articulate them. I think I'm quite good at articulating facts and putting it in a persuasive argument. But ultimately, there's no magic wand. Sometimes we manage to overturn decisions. And I think maybe that's because some officers are a little bit scared of what we might do as counsellors. Maybe we'll go to the press or something like that. We would never do that, of course. But when you get those wins for the people who are, seldom heard and have had difficulty representing themselves, that's it's a really nice feeling, really, as well. Give another example, if you like. Gentleman who, severely housebound, lost his PIP allocation, managed to get him his PIP payments back. That's going to make a massive impact to his life. Probably talking a couple of £100, a month. Someone who's really vulnerable and can't get out and about. That's going to make a massive difference to his life. So I think it's the individual casework and helping people.
So that's the best part. So what is the worst part of the job? I think I can guess what it is for you, but I won't.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
I think the worst part of your job is where you're trying to help somebody, but you can't get anywhere with it, and you feel like you let them down. Because I know what type of person you are. You're a person who does like to push and help, and you feel like you let people down when you haven't been able to get what's needed.
One tip I would give anyone who wants to be a counsellor is always, no matter what the outcome, always deliver that information back to the member of the public, right? So don't be afraid of delivering bad news. I think as long as you can illustrate that you've tried, because as I said, there's no magic wand. No. Sometimes we just can't get the win. And I think what the public really hate is when they're just left hanging and they're not given any information. So I always try and get back to the public, even if it's not the news that they want. And that's not easy, delivering bad news, but I think it's essential, really. But the worst part, I will answer your previous question. I think it's the bureaucracy, to be honest. And I'm going to say this on as a community council level. I know some of my colleagues are doers, and I'd say I'm a doer, and they do get a little bit frustrated by the, you can't just do this. It's all got to be debated in the council and all this, and it's got to be agenda itemed, and it's got to be with X number of days. I won't name them, but I know there's some frustrations there because there's some people who just want to get stuck in and serve the community. I know why we have these rules, of course, but it can be a little frustrating at times.
So we've got that and that. Let's stick with the county part here. What do you think is needed to make the council better to serve its constituents? Is there one area that you particularly identify and think that could be done so much better and make life so much better for the people that we're here to serve?
I think when you're designing services for people, the experts are not politicians. They're not always council officers, although, obviously you develop expertise and that is invaluable. But the real experts are those that live in our communities. And what I'd like to see the next administration, and I hope it's an independent administration, I would like to see greater consultation with the public. I've seen some pretty dire consultation exercises. I get the distinct impression that a lot of consultation exercises are rubber stamped, and really that citizens decision making isn't really at the heart of decision making, if you know what I mean. And I've seen, things like really reputable research companies use dreadful leading questions, and they should know better, quite frankly. I mean, I've got a little bit of a research background, but you wouldn't have to have, a master's and 10 years research experience to see some of these daft leading questions. They're trying to get a response off people.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see more citizen engagement and a meaningful engagement as well. And I'd like to see greater transparency. And I think we're starting to get there, because one development that we're considering is the handling of petitions. And I think that would be a really good functionality actually in the council. And I'm assuming what that will mean is a citizen in Bridgend County could start a petition, and I guess if they get X number of signatures, that is then discussed and debated in full council. And I think we need more examples of that, where ordinary people can influence decision making and policy. And I think that's a prime example, really.
I think it's good. I know you're
another thing, sorry, another thing as well. Did you know, as a member of the public, you can ask a question in full council? No one knows that. How effectively are we promoting that? I'd love to see a member of the public ask a question to the cabinet. I'd love it.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on. You continue.
The other thing is, you did before the pandemic, I'm not sure afterwards, but you used to hold a lot of advice surgeries, generally down in Ynysawdre, because in the community council hall. There are a few councils that do that in the county, but I don't think enough people do. Now, the problem I see, there are community councillors out there, and I've seen this working on county councillors out there, and I've seen this working on community councils, that they're coming to us when their county councillor is ignoring them, and there's only so much a community council can do. We can't, and it's generally not liked if another councillor from another area, say a neighbouring area, takes up that resident's not in their area on their behalf. It's generally frowned upon, I understand. So I think it would be more accessible for people if they could go, if they were allowed to speak to a neighbouring councillor or any other councillor that they've got a problem because they've been ignored by their current councillor. And I know most people, a lot of people do this, but some people think, well, I've got a Labour councillor in my area, but I'm not a Labour person. I don't like Labour. I don't really want to speak to them. Sometimes it can be off-putting. So could councillors be more accessible throughout the county? Because yes, you are representing an area, but you are representing the county as well.
Yes, I think so. I mean, first and foremost, I'm here to represent Ynysawdre.
Yeah.
But I'm also a Bridgend County Borough Councillor. So obviously I make decisions I take part in the decision-making process of decisions that impact outside Ynysawdre. The budget is a classic example, isn't it, really? That's pan Bridgend, isn't it? I do get people coming to me from surrounding areas. I get quite a lot of people from surrounding areas. My record is somebody came to me from Bala in North Wales. I declined the invitation to support that person, unfortunately, but it was to support them about school closure or something like that. But I did put them in touch with their local councillor. So I hope that he or she had the best of luck in supporting that constituent. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's a hard job being a councillor, isn't it, really? I mean, you use the word ignored. I would tone that down a little bit. I mean, I've had people ring me up at 5 a.m. I've had people ringing up at 2 a.m. Sometimes you just cannot get, even with the best will in the world, you cannot get hold of an elected member. Maybe they're on holiday. Maybe they're having pressures. We're all human. They could have work commitments. So, what's the problem? Let's work together. If somebody wants to go to me and they live in wherever, what's the problem? And the correct protocol is that that you copy the member in, and that's generally done. So yeah, more flexibility. I suppose it would give us a more broader understanding of Bridgend County as well. It would get us more in tune with other communities, share best practice, and it would be greater collaboration. And I think that's a real flavour that I'm getting off the independents, working with them more recently as well. More collaborative attitude and sharing of ideas and best practice.
Speaking of that, because you were a party member with both Plaid Cymru and Propel, and now you're working with Bridgend County Independence in a way, and your group with Leanne Tiandaya and Mark John. When you were a party member, did you look at groups like BCI, like the Cllr Independence, like Porthcawl Independence, and think, well, they're just a party in disguise, and they're just pretending to be independents when they're not?
No, I don't think so, really. I've got close relations. I always had close relations with Cllr Independence. Their leader, Ross Thomas, good friend of mine. I think they have a good old debate, and I don't think they've all voted en masse. If you know what I mean, no. Tom might vote one way, Keith might vote the other way, and Ross might vote the other way. But they have a good debate, and they come to some sort of negotiation. But they're their own people, and I think you get that even more diversity in BCI. No, there's no whip, so nobody is whipped, and you make your decision. And I've never known anyone being criticised for voting one way or the other. You do that. You take the facts in, you make a decision, and you vote accordingly. And that's your decision. That's your gift as a member in that council chamber. And I think that's really understood by BCI members. That you're your own person. And if I'm honest, when I was in Plaid, and I did think, oh, maybe it's a quasi party, but it's not, because there's no whip, as I've said. There's no you must vote this way or the other, or there'll be consequences and sanctions. All there is a support network.
Yeah.
And that support network is things like the administrative side of it. And I'm really grateful for that administrative support, because I don't think the good people of Ynysawdre elected me for my admin skills. And you can ask poor old Leanne about that one as well. But it's a support network for administrative skills, administrative procedures, and the sharing of ideas. But ultimately, when you step in that chamber, the way you vote is up to you and you only. And no one, I could have voted for the budget if I wanted to yesterday. There would have been no consequences whatsoever. In contrast, we only have to look at the reason why the Cllr Independence formulated in the first place. They were two of them, I think, they were all Labour Party members. Two of them, I'm sure they won't mind me saying this, two of them were serving Labour councillors, and they voted against the whip, and they were given the most ridiculous sanctions ever. I think they couldn't stand, actually, or something like that.
They were deselected from the Labour Party. There were 6 Labour members who were at that time. They were all deselected because they voted against the merger with the Vale.
Exactly, yeah. Just for having the audacity to have some originality of thought. And that was the consequences. You just don't get that with BCI. And I think, although I'm not a member of the Cllr or the Porthcawl ones, I suspect there is a similar setup with them as well.
Yeah, it's like a party in the support structure, but not when it comes to your own thinking.
If you're a standalone independent, for me personally, getting the 10 signatures, for example, that's easy anyway. But I used to have a bit of fun with the 10 signatures. I mean, my last one were 10 former Labour voters. I just thought I'd have a bit of a laugh with that. But some people find that getting the 10 signatures a little bit difficult and a bit intimidating. So we could perhaps support getting that. Now, as it happens, the 10 signature thing is being discarded now. My understanding is you won't have to get them, but still, by the by, there is still some admin to do. And for some people, that might be a barrier. And if there's a support network that provides support like that, such as BCI, then all the better. Because at the end of the day, this is about getting more people engaged in the democratic process, more diverse people from backgrounds. And what we got in BCI, we've got people from a variety of backgrounds, as I've already said, and Bridgend County will be all the more richer and better for electing these diverse backgrounds, I think.
Yeah, I did an interview earlier with Amy Philpin McConnell and her husband Dan McConnell. I haven't finished doing them yet; they'll be up at some point. And she was saying she was looking into standing last November, and then she looked at all the paperwork and didn't know what she was doing. No, she wasn't sure of the legal requirements and gave up. And it wasn't until she met Steve by chance, and he said he'd seen her on Facebook and everything. He goes, "You're Gobby, you can do this." So, "Oh, I can't." And she said, "Well," he said, "Well, we'll give you the support, explain to you what you need, the legal requirements you have to follow, and we'll help you deliver leaflets." And that's all we want. Like Leanne said, when she met Steve, she asked him, "What's in it for you?" And it's nothing really. It's just getting people interested. And I think especially Labour can't see that that's what BCI do. They're there to support people, and they're called not true independents when they are really. It's just having that support network, because the legal requirements on a lot of the stuff you have to do is quite silly, but they have to be there, like the correct font size, having that imprint at the bottom of the leaflet of where your office is really and who's your campaign manager and things like that. And it can be a hard network to navigate, especially if you're not quite versed in legalese and things like that. But then that's what BCI brings in the support. They know everything that you have to follow. They can give you the advice. You don't have to go looking for all that advice yourself, that information yourself.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Last thing now, you are an extremely busy councillor, as we've mentioned so many times, with your different hats. How is your poor wife coping with all that?
Yeah,
glad to get you out the house.
No, it's a good question. Yeah, it is a balancing act, and in the past, perhaps I could have offered a bit more family time, but it's something I'm very aware of. And I work full time as well, don't I? So it is a juggling act, and I do have to make sure that I don't get too carried away. I do get carried away, and I just throw myself into every campaign. But I experience as now maybe a bit more mindful that family time is important. It is a stressful job, and that's where family are useful. So keep on the right side of them, and make sure that you have time with them.
Yes, because you are busy. Even during your lunch break, you go down picking litter, that you did last year.
Yeah, do you know what? I enjoyed that. It's not much fun in this weather, but I found it quite therapeutic, actually.
It was a sunny day on the road going down to the country park that you
did
last year.
I do that in my lunch break, as you've said, and I'd also do that if a meeting was cancelled. I thought, I'm out and about, may as well do it. And I've got the bags in the car and the litter pickers. It's just an ad hoc thing, because people say to me, "Oh, when you tell me, I'd give you a hand." But it's not a thing that I say, "Oh, right, every Tuesday I'll do that." It's a bit of an ad hoc, with the exception of there's an organised litter pick that I get involved with the residents of Ynysawdre. And I forget now. I think it's the third or fourth Sunday. They always remind me anyway. The third Sunday in the morning, about 10 a.m. We do a litter pick, and they're doing a marvelous job there. And I think one of the problems there is that estate, the Ynysawdre estate, it hasn't been adopted yet by the local authority, so they're lacking bins and all sorts of things that you'd expect a normal highway to get, and the culmination of rubbish is quite high. And I dread to think what it'd be like if they weren't litter picking there. It's not that the folks there are bad. I think a lot of it's blowing in as well. But yeah, I take this brilliant. Another good example of community spirit, I think.
Yes, I remember the first time we were going to do a litter pick back in 2017, a cold, rainy morning, and we stood there, and the guy from Keep Wales Tidy couldn't make it, and we were just standing there in Pandy Park.
Yes. Again, Tom D Rugby Club, they do a great job.
Yeah.
You don't want to play rugby with loads of rubbish around you, and it's an ongoing battle. I've spoken to their chair, Cllr Thomas. It's just a constant battle, clearing those pitches and making sure they're up to standard. It's a matter of pride, isn't it, really? I mean, that's your home park, and you get visiting teams coming there, and you want it to be in a top state for a good standard of rugby.
Okay. Right. Well, that's the end. I'll give you a chance to say anything you want to say to any possible voters in your area who may be watching this.
Lovely, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure working as the borough councillor in Ynysawdre. Worked incredibly hard, as I've already said. I think it's out of 55 councillors, I've done the second most referrals. It hasn't come without challenges. We've had massive challenges with things like the proposed building of house building off Ynysawdre Road. That was a big challenge. The CATS transfer. There's the crisis centre in Bryn Melyn. But I think we've taken those challenges head on. But there's certainly unfinished business. And I've started those projects, and I want to have the opportunity to continue the good work. And work progressively with my two other independents, Leanne Tian Dyer and Mark John. So my message to any listeners living in Bryn Melyn, Sarn, Tondy, and Bryn Cefn on May you've got the early voting as well on May the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. 3 votes for the independents, please. And we're always on offer to help. You've probably seen our leaflets now. We're really accessible. Our email addresses and telephone numbers on there. Don't hesitate to contact us, and we can support you in the community.
Well, thank you, Tim, and I'll say good luck to you and the other 2 independents in Ynysawdre and St Bride's. I think it's combined us, isn't it?
Yeah, so what it is, Ynysawdre, Sarn, Bryn Coch, and Bryn Cefn. I've got to be really careful not to forget a community there. That they were 4 former wards, and it's being condensed down into a 3-member ward of that. Of course, I've also got to mention 16 and 17-year-olds can vote for the first time as well.
Yeah,
done a lot of work for young people. Governor at Bryn Melyn, CCYD, supported Tondy United, Aberkenfyd Boys and Girls Club, really done lots of work for young people as well. So I really hope young people use their vote, because this is about maximising our democratic process. And there's some people who are a little bit negative towards 16 and 17-year-olds having the vote. I'm not one of them. It's something I was campaigning for a long time. We've got to open up our democracy to more people. Obviously, there's a line in there, but I think 16 and 17-year-olds is a good intervention. So please use your vote, hopefully for the independents.
Well, thank you. This Sunday, I have a live stream. I have Amanda Williams and Steve Easterbrook on this Sunday at 7 p.m. where we'll be talking about planning, which I think you'll be interested in, because we're going to mention the Ynysawdre and Wellness Centre and the problems with planning permissions. We're going to talk about scrutiny as well, which probably Tim would be good for as well, and the budget, which Tim would be good for. Do you want to come on, Tim?
I'm not talking about planning. I'd probably get locked up.
Well, it's something, because it's not just the planning process; it's the builders afterwards and the
Fair enough. Yeah.
adoption.
I found development control extremely restrictive, and it wasn't for me.
So, as I say, I've got one more space for this Sunday. If anybody wants to join me, like yourself, Tim, or anything, please come on. I'll thank you again, Tim, and good luck in the election. And if your lady wife does stand, good luck to her. And if she wants to chat at any point, we can arrange that. So for now, I'll say goodbye. Bye, Tim.
I know.